Hey, hello. Welcome to the Content Advantage, a talk show for content professionals about what else? Content. I'm Scott Abel. I'll be your co-host today. With me is my co-host, excuse me, pardon me.
That bad?
Megan Gilhooly. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. Welcome without my frog now.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't pass that on. How are you doing, Scott? Doing good?
Thanks for being here. I can breathe now.
Yay. Good. Good, good. So let me introduce our guest. So she's one of my favorite people in the world. Good friend. Yay. Love her to death. She is the Senior Manager of Technical Publications at NetApp, and her name is Jennifer Kaufman. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Very nice.
Well, to the audience members who might be new to the platform, if you aren't, I apologize for regurgitating the same old thing. But for the newbies, I want to tell you a few things. First, you don't have to worry about your camera or your microphone because we can't see or hear you. We don't have any access to those devices. Also, today's show is being recorded. So if you have to leave a little early today, or if you get distracted for some reason, you want to come back and look at some of the content that you missed, you can do so just by using the URL you're using to watch the live show. About a half an hour after the show ends today, it will become a recording, and we'll also send you an email reminding you that you're able to access that on demand whenever you'd like to. You can also share that link with others, and we hope that you will. If you have any questions of our presenter today, you can ask a question at any time by clicking the Ask a Question button located underneath your webinar viewing panel. It will open up a small text window that will allow you to text a message to us. We won't be able to text you back, so know that, but we will queue up as many questions as we can for Jennifer and ask them with the time that we have available on today's show. And speaking of the show, we've got additional content in the form of handouts and links made available in the attachments section of your webinar viewing panel. There you can find information about our presenter, some topic-related content, and some content provided by our sponsor, Zoomin software, which we'll hear a little bit about later in the show. All right, Megan, let's take off and have a great show with Jennifer.
All right, very good. So before we get into the weeds, Jennifer, let's talk a little bit about you. Can you tell us about yourself and sort of what your connection is to today's topic, which is elevating tech doc teams?
Yes.
Sure. Well, thank you again. As you said, I'm a senior manager at NetApp. I've been at NetApp for, I want to say 15 years. I came to technical writing kind of through the sideways door of writing and filmmaking, so humanities background. Just started doing technical writing at the recommendation of a friend who was a technical writer who explained what the job was to me. And I loved it and have been doing it ever since. And I manage a team at NetApp of great technical professionals, and I'm excited about making sure everybody understands the importance of that team to the business. And so elevating the technical publications job, elevating the role, elevating the people who do it is one of my passions. So I'm really happy to be here talking about it with you guys. Thank you.
I had no idea that you started your career in film. How did I not know this after all these years?
There wasn't enough alcohol involved last time.
Yes.
I think that may be the answer to lots of things.
Yes.
So I tell you what, I liked your circuitous route that you traveled in order to get there. It's similar, I think, to myself and Megan, who also have had some interesting experiences along the way that colored the way that we think about technical communication. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think we should focus our efforts on making the invisible tech comm team visible? And what do you kind of mean by that?
Yeah. So I think this is a sweeping generalization. Sweep.
But yeah, you're loud.
Many of us in the role of technical communicator are invisible kind of by design, right? We're embedded in a release team, or we are doing such an incredibly good job of creating content that is seamless for the consumer that they don't think about us, which is great. But what happens when you're invisible and keeping a low profile and embedded with your technology team and doing what you're supposed to be doing is sometimes you sort of get forgotten about. You might get forgotten about at the high level. So for example, when funding is being discussed, you might be forgotten about when people are congratulating each other on the success of a product. You might be forgotten about when product owners are thinking about how they're going to launch their product and all of the various important parts of the content strategy that feed a successful product launch or its life cycle. There's lots of ways that it can be difficult for the team if they are left out of the planning and conversation. But almost more important, if you're invisible, sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's hard for the people doing the work. They don't see themselves reflected. They don't see themselves acknowledged. They don't themselves know what an important part they play in the pre-sales portion of a product's life cycle. So they don't think about themselves as part of marketing. Marketing. but you know, you kind of got to market yourself a little bit as a team, and the role, I think, needs a little bit of marketing. And I think that the benefit of that is feeling really great about what you do, feeling that your work is really important, and also having your organization be more supported by the entire product kind of ecosystem, right? Everybody involved in launching and supporting a product. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you know, I just think it's both the people and the work, right? So
yeah, and it feels good to be recognized for doing something, especially when it's not just meeting the deadline. I mean, after all, we're all expected to do that, right? You're expected to be at a certain place at a certain time in a certain building, and they expect that you're capable of doing it repeatedly, right? It's not like you don't get rewarded for it every day you show up on time.
Yeah, but, and everybody wants to be rewarded differently, right? Like, you know, again, sweeping generalization. A lot of tech writers aren't like, look at me, woo! Like, I'm a little unusual in that regard, and they don't want to be called attention to. So how do you make sure that they're getting their due, and also that they get a chance to interact with customers, with other people in the same field? You got to kind of get them up out of the weeds so that they can talk to each other and talk to the people that really benefit from the work they're doing. So.
Right. So Jen, you and I have sort of a similar background, because I mean, I didn't come from film, but I ran teams at Amazon that are very similar to the teams that you're in charge of at NetApp. And one of the things that we've talked about in the past is this idea of branding your people and branding your team. And I don't mean branding like you brand a cow. I mean like giving them a brand, right? And making sure that their brand.
No cow branding. What are you talking about?
Making sure that their brand is a positive one that helps the team, and making sure the team's brand is sort of moving you towards your goals. So can you talk to us a little bit about the way you see brand with your Tech Talk team, and how you've sort of used that to communicate the value of your team?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've mostly been, I hope, having fun with it. A couple of years ago, we made the decision to start authoring in GitHub. We use a GitHub-backed platform now, and we've been migrating all of our content into it. And that's a whole other discussion about, you know, innovation. This is one of our writers who made a decision to do this. Really, really interesting history of it. But part of that kind of started to change the way we were talking and thinking about the community, the technical content community. And did this allow us to invite people in to help us with content? You know, SMEs, really great, you know, super advanced customers, product owners, various people, allowing them to comment on or make suggestions to the documentation. And we started thinking about the content community and what did that mean? And that kind of led us into a lot of discussions around, did people know who we were? Did people know our team? And we kind of started just playing a little bit with some of the ways that we had to make sure that people kind of knew who we were, how they could contact us, that we were real people, that we were available, that we loved what we were doing. And my mission to elevate the role kind of, I would say, flowed over nicely into a couple different places. One is our social media channels, which we had sort of had, but we weren't really doing anything with them. Twitter, and a little are attending our technical conference pre-COVID. Insight NetApp has a big technical conference, and sort of showing up and having a booth and having prizes and having a sense of who we were there. We created a little mascot, Doc, the owl.
I remember seeing Doc on social media.
Out right here with me.
He's famous.
He's famous.
He is.
And we started just kind of trying to get an understanding of who the people are behind docs.netapp.com, which is our documentation platform. We did some campaigns. We branded ourselves proudly as the Word Nerds. We did some campaigns that elevated people. People talked about what they love about their job. We took the quotes, we posted them, we had artwork. We did a travel sequence where we got words from people from all over the world where they were. Like, what's a word from the place you're from? So if you're from Pittsburgh, you might say yins. Yins is a word that we love here. We made a little piece of art about it. We posted it. We did some campaigns where people were talking about where they were working, and we sent Doc out to people who contributed a lot to our content, and people posted pictures of Doc working with them or with their kids or being eaten by their dogs. We're just trying to create a sense of who we are, right? We're a team of people, and we want to hear from you, and we want to support you and make sure that you're successful with the products. We're not like a faceless, I don't know what, right? Nor are we, windowless Garrett, fingerless glove, alone people. We're a group of people who care deeply about your success with this product, and we love words, and we are from all over the world. And so it started kind of to build, and I think it made the team, we saw ourselves, we saw each other, we felt really good about what we do. And it began to kind of spill over into other teams. They would contact us. They would talk about us. They would ask about Doc. They would ask about how they could contribute to the documentation. They would come visit us. They would stand with us at the booth. They would ask how they could help. They would contact us and say, hey, I have a content problem. Do you think you guys can help? That's how we began to elevate the team to a more visible layer at the company and with our customers. And I think it really made us feel good about who we are and what we do, right?
That's awesome.
So,
I love that idea. I think giving your team permission to think outside the box and brainstorm new ways of delivering value is super smart for a lot of reasons. Some of them you touched on already. But what can happen in your experience when a leader allows and encourages a team to think of new ways to tackle content challenges and to kind of speak openly about the value or the problems that they're trying to solve, the value they're trying to provide or the problems they're trying to solve? What can we, what have you learned about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So our team is, I'm sure all teams are like this, not like our team, we're so special, but we are continually, we have a catchphrase, which is, innovating while delivering. Woo! I should go into marketing, right?
You should. You totally should.
Yeah. So, but the idea is, you got to deliver. You have to. That's why you're there, is to make sure that there's content so that customers can be successful with products. Okay. But while you're doing that, you want to always look for opportunities to innovate. And we pay a lot of attention to innovation in our org. And we pay a lot of attention to people who have ideas and try things. People are always trying new things. We have folks who rolled out using embedded animation in the hardware documentation. Wow, that was cool. And then some other people did it too. I mentioned before our content lead, who was the first person in the team to support our cloud products, which release every 5 seconds. And so the old authoring platform we were using couldn't keep pace. And so he decided that we should look into using GitHub. And in fact, it's been so amazing for us and has been so in alignment with our vision for how we produce content that we are following. This whole group is following him basically there. We have a lot of innovators on our team, and we're really excited about it. There's a lot of conversations right now in the business world about the power of a diverse team. And what does that mean to have unusual voices in the room? Well, that includes having technical documentation team speaking in the product team, or speaking to marketing, or coming up with an idea and sharing it across channels. We do a lot of cross-team planning before a product even begins to be kind of assembled. We're working with the other teams who are going to create content for it to make sure the customer is supported through the whole journey. You got to have people's voices in the room, and surprising people, opening their mouths and coming up with ideas and giving input makes a big difference, and it makes a better product, and it makes a better business. So great stuff happens. You know, you really have these little evolutionary leaps of content creation and production when you allow people to think outside the box and come up with ideas and share them. So it's a really powerful environment for folks to come in.
It's a good thing. And who wouldn't want to work in that environment, right? Why should writers be any different?
Absolutely.
We handhold a lot of roles in corporations in general. I mean, for specific reasons, but sometimes the creative people, they're like, oh, you know, they do that. They write, they draw, they make video, they do whatever they do over there.
Yeah.
But what we really do, right, is we're a stand-in for the customer. So, I mean, I think that, you know, that the empathy that the technical writer has for the customer, there's nothing quite like it, right? We're the first ones to feel the pain. Or this. I mean, there we are, right? We're this connective tissue between the person who built the thing, the person who's going to use the thing. And we have empathy for both of them. You know, we want to please and satisfy and support the person who created this product. Like, we are embedded with the developer and we get it. Yeah, we listened to you and we hear what you, and we are representing the customer. We are the user. And so we are empathetic from the very beginning for the user experience. And that is a critical part of what we do. And it has nothing to do with being, you know, a writer or a creative. It has to do with being the first outsider, really. You know,
and a human, right?
Yeah.
Being a human. You know, I love their focus on innovation. And I'm curious, does the branding that you did, has that, because innovation costs money, right? Like, you have to invest in order to innovate. So has your branding helped you get budget for certain innovations, do you think?
I don't know. I would love to say absolutely. I don't know.
It's hard to know.
I don't know, but I do know that if Mr. Big or Mrs. Big at the top knows who we are because they hear chatter about how we're cool, or we did a neat thing, or a customer loves us, or they saw us on Twitter, or NetApp channel picked up something that we were doing and promoted it because it was charming and fun.
Right.
I would be shocked if that didn't factor into discussions and decisions about whether technical publications was an important part of the company, right? I mean, if you're visible and if there are people lined up waiting to talk to you at the booth at Insight,
right,
no one's not going to see that. That means something.
Even a webinar, you know,
metrics that we collect from our content, there are billions of people looking at our content. It's sort of non-negotiable data, right? So that's got to factor in. I would think it would factor in, but can I prove it? No.
Yeah, the only thing that seems obvious to me is that, kind of like a webinar, whenever a product vendor wants to talk about their tool, one of the things I first say is, you know, what's your end goal? And they go, well, of course we want to have people buy our tool. And I say, you know, they have to be aware of your tool first. Right. Then they have to become interested in learning more. And so it's your job to not just introduce the purchase price and the cycle to them, but talk to them about the problems and, you know, kind of awareness building. I think technical communication has never been asked stereotypically to promote themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You know what I mean? So, but marketing, they're like, oh, we have extra budget. Let's do like a team plan. And, you know, they will take their techniques and apply them to their own department in a creative setting. And I think you're encouraging us to do the same thing. And to me, if we are part of pre-sales, let's learn how to sell. Yeah. Right. And do it ourselves.
I love everything you just said. And I do think that also when you learn to talk about yourself differently, you're learning to sell, really. You know,
that's a great point.
It's a skill that you need to learn, and maybe you don't need to learn it, but if you think it's important, it's a skill you need to learn. And one of the things that we did, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, is we went through the exercise, literally, of deciding how to talk about ourselves differently. We had some sessions. We had I called them refrigerator magnets because we came up with like good words to use.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and they were like words about what we do that are the better words to choose, right? So again, not choosing, you know, oh, we don't matter, we're invisible, they forget about us, nobody cares about us. Instead, you change the way you talk about yourself, you change the way you talk about yourself to each other, and you change the way you talk about your team to outsiders. And lo and behold, you know, they believe
it changes the story.
That's the power of marketing. So
Yeah.
it's an important skill to learn.
And it's all about storytelling. It really is. I remember being at a company once where the CEO said, I can't believe you lead technical communication teams. And I was like, why? And he said, well, you're too normal. And I was like,
thanks for that.
I have a ton of amazing people on my team who, like, I don't know if we're calling normal good or if I'm just like, if you're saying I'm too boring, I don't know. But like, I had great people on my team. So it was all about changing the story in very much the way that you're talking about. That's awesome. Very cool. So speaking of that, speaking of like the normal versus the non-normal. So technical documentation professionals, I think that career as a path has changed markedly, obviously, since I started in it, right? Many decades ago. But how do you see the role of the tech doc professional and how might you describe it to others? What are some of those words that you're talking about that are on your refrigerator magnets?
Yeah, weirdo. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, but I mean,
it's okay. We are kind of weird.
We are pretty interesting people. I mean, people we started this conversation with, you know, how did you find yourself here? I mean, there's a lot of really interesting people that do this work.
That's right. And
that's one of the great things about it. But I mean, I always talk about it as, you know, it's a little maybe hackneyed, but, you know, as connectors, right? So that's our job, is to translate from technology to non-technology. That's sort of the hand wave. But it's more like a cultural exchange program sometimes. You know, we go in and we learn about this culture, and then we report on the culture, and we try to embed ourselves in it and provide some framework around it. I don't know. I think it's a really amazing job. Of course, I love it, right? Because I do it. And you were talking a little bit about change in this role. I mean, when I started technical writing, I was laying lino out and taking it to the printer to print books.
Yes.
I remember those.
I remember the blue graph paper.
You know, and then I would take the stack of lino to, you know, and then they would bring it back, and I would look at it, make sure it was okay, and then they would print a freaking book. Of my garbage that would sit on somebody's, you know, and then, oh, whoops, time to print another book, do it all over again. Right. And now I go to GitHub and I type in words and I go like this, and they show up on netapp.com. So it's a totally different world, and it's a totally different world every 5 minutes. And that's one of the things that, if you really are embracing the job, change, and accepting, you know, the newness of it. I think we have to keep pace with the technology. We have to keep pace with the products. We have to keep pace with our customers. Our cloud customers are totally different from our on-prem storage customers, and we have to serve them all. We have to pay attention to the differences between the way they consume content, not just the way they use the product, but the way they consume content. We have to learn. So change, I think, just has to be the norm. And you can either love it and ride it, or you can resist it and be uncomfortable. Probably loving it and riding it is a more successful strategy. But, you know, the future of this job is unwritten, because we have to adapt, and we will adapt, and you will always need information. You know, you always need some kind of information. How it materializes, that I can't say.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'll all change.
We could all be VR. We could all be wearing goggles, right? But
the mechanics can change.
But someone has to think about what you're looking at with your VR goggles, right?
So I have to ask, do you guys remember that panic feeling you got back in the day when you were about ready to publish? It's towards the end of the day.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm ready to go. And you do one last look and you go, oh my God, there's an extra word. And then that's like 4 hours of work that you have to go back to repaginate everything after taking the word out. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
I
remember laying books out in Quark and doing one long thing. And then it's hours of tweet. I mean,
and you finally get it, and then you're like, oh.
I think there was also kind of this time period where there were people who started that production process, and they didn't have the tools that started to come out when we were younger. And so I was fortunate. Like I started with a Windows machine in college for 2 days, and then they took them all out and put Macintoshes in. And then they said, no more Linotronic, no more blah, blah, blah. Now we're going direct to press. And we're like, what does that mean? How is that even a thing? You just taught us how to glue things down on a piece of paper last week.
I remember my very first, operational, whatever, I don't know what to call it, was trying to convince my team that they didn't need to print books anymore. They could just print a PDF. And they were like, no, that's not a thing.
No,
I'm like,
way.
no, it is. You can just make a PDF. And they were like, no, that's not. No, really, you can. Think of all the money you'll save. And they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it took forever. And now that's laughable, right? We're practically trying to convince people that we need PDF, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm starting to see why we got the reputation we did of being a bunch of weirdos or not being normal, because we're nitpicky about
this conversation. Who talks about these things for this?
Right.
That PDF thing was important because it allowed us to do one thing that was useful, right? Which was to give somebody the keyword searchability that you couldn't get from giving them that printed manual. So I think we stood behind that, like, yes, it's not a paper manual, but you could keyword search. You don't have to go to the TOC and then go to the index and then go to page whatever that then doesn't have the right number on it, or, because we didn't have those advanced numbering systems at first either. If you remember, we struggled with Microsoft Word, and you would change one page and it would change all the pagination and all the TOC would have to be checked again. It was crazy. So Megan, this seems like a great time to tell the audience a little bit about the software that your company makes and how it can help technical communicators. Yeah, do that.
Yes, good segue. Getting out of the PDF.
That's right.
So Zoomin is a delivery platform that ingests technical product content from really any source. It could be PDFs, it could be XML content, structured, unstructured, it kind of doesn't matter. So no matter where it was created or published, we deliver it into a documentation portal, we deliver it inside your community, we deliver it into your customer service site, and we'll even deliver it inside your product itself. And so this way, the same content shows up no matter which door your customer is coming in to get it. And so really what we like to think we do is we help elevate the documentation teams, because doc teams are putting together this amazing content that needs to be accessible to customers. And we make it highly accessible to customers. And we, more importantly, give them consistency no matter where they're getting it. So that's what Zoomin does.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And let's get back to Jennifer real quick, because I think that her team probably delivers lots of content in different ways. And if that will change, as we've talked about over the next few years, as technology changes. But Jennifer, do you have any stories that you can share with the audience in which your technical documentation teams were actually able to increase their visibility? They did something and then they recognized, like, wow, that kind of worked.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe I already gave a couple of examples. One being sort of showing up in person at some of these technical conferences or events and talking to customers. And then the kind of ripple effect of that. So you showed up, you spent some time talking to the customers. One of those people is a partner. That person then contacts you later. Then all of a sudden you learn about a content need that's happening in the field that we were unaware of, that we can now support, that we now get some requirements from them. We find out, oh, we can deliver this content to you in a more effective manner. I mean, I think that I have a lot of stories about people, I would say, upping their game, their visibility game, and then getting a good response. The other being kind of going out in front of the GitHub authoring platform, reaching out to stakeholders, getting them to contribute content, kind of up-leveling the integration between expert and technical documentation rep in the cloud space, and becoming really embedded with that team. And they have a lot of ownership, and they feel, I think, committed to what we're doing. There's a lot of little examples. I don't know if I've got one really great one of somebody doing something specific, because the team is kind of doing this all the time, right? They're sort of all out there in each of their places doing this all the time. As a group, we had a really good time this past year, especially during the pandemic, using our social media channels, to
Excellent.
And that really, I think, created that sense of community when we were all home in our little places. And I know that outside stakeholders got involved in that, and that was a real delight. You know, that's
I mean, I can attest to that because I'm connected with you on social media, and I remember all the stories about Doc flying all over the world and being everywhere. It was fun. It was really fun to watch. It was really cool. Yeah. So, just a quick question about your team. How large is your team at NetApp? And somebody actually asked a question and wanted to know how you work with subject matter experts and product owners and others.
So the team that's a great question. How large is the team at NetApp? Well, the team at NetApp is comprised of staff and vendor writers and a very small but mighty tools organization. And we are combined at NetApp with the globalization office. So we have a content creating team, tools organization that supports the platform upon which we publish, and globalization team that ensures that content and other materials are available in language all across the world. So it's kind of a cool combination team. I think there's 60-something people in our team, in our content team. So just the content team. So that's content creators and managers and editors. I think it's 60-something. And we support 200-something products. So big load of products. And then we have a system in our organization where we have basically a matrix of our products. And as products move through different stages of their maturity, we apply different sets of resources. So a brand new product, high visibility, very important to the company, very important to our customer base or to getting new customers. We will assign one of our senior staff members to that product.
Okay.
A product that's been in existence for a long time, and it's in that, you know, old but beloved category, like a family dog that's been around a long time. That generally will be supported by a combination of vendor and staff resources. So primarily vendors working on maintaining the content with staff sort of overseeing, making sure everything goes well. And that's loosely how we do it. So people move around a little bit. How do we work with SMEs? It really depends on the product. We have 2 large business units at NetApp, one of which is primarily for our cloud products and one of which is primarily for our classic products. These products are released a combination of various flavors of Agile. Don't ask me because there's so many. Hardware products are still released with a waterfall methodology. They have to be. These are massively interesting, complicated, state-of-the-art hardware products. So they're released that way. And then all the software is released in various different modes. And on the cloud side, just super, super fast Agile model, right? So just release. So these 2 business units have to be supported in very different ways. And because of that, the writers who are embedded in these teams will interact with those teams differently depending on how those teams are releasing. So on the Agile model, obviously the writer is embedded. With some of the larger old products, sometimes the writer isn't embedded as much as they are attached to the product. And so we will get demand signals, content has to be created because of error, change, whatever it is. And so we will then create that content and publish it out, but they're not as embedded as they are on the products that have a livelier release model. So it really depends. I love those answers. It depends.
Yeah, it always depends, right?
Yeah. But we work with SMEs, to understand the product and document it regardless of its methodology.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. I have a question for you that I didn't really prepare you for. So hopefully it's not coming too far out of left field. But so you talked a lot about the branding of the team, which is awesome. And now you've talked about your team, the size, the structure, and what you deliver. And I know from being in your shoes previously that there's always a shortage of time, right? You never have enough capacity to do all of the tasks that you need to do on the sort of tech doc side. So how did you, as the manager of the team, how did you fit in these branding tasks that presumably don't take, that much time, but certainly do take time from your team? How did you prioritize that against some of the most important priorities in tech docs? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a really good question because nobody's got time for this, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
this isn't your real job. And in fact, yeah, it is a balancing act. So I was able to do it because I was extremely lucky to get for a short period of time. Unfortunately, they've moved on, but for a while we had somebody who was working as basically a communications person on our team, and this person helped support the plan. So I would sit down with her and I would say, let's do a campaign called Where's Doc, and we'll send Doc to people and we'll ask them to please either send us a picture or post a picture on Twitter and hashtag yada. And right. She said, okay. And then she would schedule some of the tweets. She would make sure that our account was retweeting other people. She did a good job of making people feel watched and listened to, because I didn't have time to do all of that social media, right? And she would help me reach out to my team and say, hey, we're doing this campaign. What we need from you is a quote about what you love about your job, and pick one of these owls that we've created, and we'll put those in as a tweet for you. You don't even have to be on Twitter. And people would opt in, right? So you get 5 people out of the 60 who are interested in doing that. Sometimes you'd get 15 people out of the 60 who are interested in doing that. It depended on whether the campaign resonated with them, whether they thought it was cute, whether they were enjoying it. And so people would opt in, but we tried to take all of the sort of heavy lifting off of their plates. All we asked them to do was give us some content. And then she and I did all the work, basically. It doesn't work if you don't have friends, right? I have friends in other orgs, including the social media org at NetApp, who will retweet us. Otherwise, it just kind of goes.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
Why do I have friends in the social media org at NetApp? Because I was at the technical conference on the floor at the booth.
There you go.
Clubs, and they got to know me. That's
there you go.
That's
there you
how
go.
It works.
I love that.
Well,
get in there, and then people know you, and then they support you. So
I have a question that also I didn't prepare to ask you, but it just dawned on me that we, the 3 of us, and some other technical communicators have had this aha moment that we're attached in value to people who are looking for information, regardless of whether they are current customers or prospects. And that prospects sometimes go on a fishing expedition to see whatever it is that they, we can't always predict exactly what they're looking for, but they're looking for things sometimes that are different than the product they already own, or they are looking for the things they imagine the product they want to buy probably has, and they don't really know, so they have to go fish. And the marketing content is sometimes valuable to help them understand what a tool can do. But once they're in the weeds, marketing content doesn't seem to provide that kind of in-depth, it's not their job. So we've had aha moments that were connected to marketing. Have you seen any indication that a marketing or a salesperson has said, oh my gosh, I think this TechCom content is valuable?
Yeah.
The other way around?
Yeah. And actually, we were told by marketing at one point when we were having these cross-functional meetings about content strategy at NetApp. She said, customers are doing an end run around marketing content and going straight to technical documentation.
Wow.
She's a marketing person. She's like, because they don't trust the marketing content to tell them the truth. And so they're like, that's nice. I want to see the real scoop. And so they go to the documentation and read it before deciding to buy. And so, I'm sure everybody is aware that there's a buyer's journey or a customer journey. These change constantly, but there's more or less, there's the learn, buy, use, whatever. There's tons of different versions of that model. But technical documentation used to live squarely in the use space. And that's what people talk about. They bought it. Now they're going to use it. Now this is your guys' world. No, we are actually way over here now in the learn, try before the buy. And that is really important for us to be aware of. And that, all joking aside, we become marketing collateral at that point. And it was a marketer that called my attention to that. So I think, yes, people are talking about it. It's understood. What you do with that information as a company is really important. We're trying really hard at NetApp to do cross-team content planning.
Oh,
yeah.
technical publications is talking to marketing, talking to support, talking to our learning services organization to make sure, talking to digital marketing to make sure we aren't leaving gaps in that buyer journey, to make sure we aren't creating duplication in that buyer journey, and to make sure that if the technical documentation needs to be surfaced early on, they can find it.
Right.
So, yeah.
You know, one of the things I did once to make this clear at a company I was at, I took basically looked like a timeline of the customer journey. So it started with, you know, discovery and awareness, and then it moved into sort of that pre-sales stage, and then when the buy was, then onboarding and blah, blah, blah. So you put that out, and then I did this wavy line kind of going up and down, and I took specific examples of content and I placed them on the wavy line when they might use it. And it included marketing content, learning and training content, technical content, and kind of any content we could get our hands on. So that way they could see what pieces of tech content are most likely going to help them. For example, if something was really high in SEO, which a lot of tech content is, then that would be placed squarely in the pre-sales arena. Now, that same content might also be used for advocacy, right? So it could be used in two different places. But it gave a really good picture of exactly which content is being used where along the line, which was really interesting for executives to see.
And also you used a visual.
Yes.
Hey,
you didn't make a book. You
Some
didn't make a
people learn
book or a
from visuals.
PDF.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't go as far to socialize it back then because I wasn't big into social. I mean, it was quite a while ago. So,
but
anyway.
knowing which media to use, that's really important skill for a technical communicator.
Yes.
That really resonates with me. The idea of showing that picture and showing the content. You know, one of the things that we found out when we started trying to dig into the metrics that we have metrics, but like what do you do with them, is that docs.netapp.com, which is kind of part of what you see when you're in netapp.com space. This is netapp.com that's our company website. It's marketing. I mean, it's great. And that's what it is. That at some point, somebody gave us some metrics that our page, the docs.netapp.com page, which is just a place to access the product documentation, was the most searched page on the entire site. Now, I don't know if it still is or if that's always true, but at the time. And we were like, wow, that's marketing content. And what are they doing? They're looking for the docs over and over again. That's where they're going to learn about the product. And so that data doesn't lie. It's not just somebody saying something to someone in the conference room. That's actual data, watching customers go search for content about the product to learn, whether it's before they buy or after they buy. But if they're on netapp.com, it probably is before they buy. So it was really interesting to see that.
Do you think it might be for teams that are just starting out and they want to elevate their value and have other people in the departments they don't work directly for recognize their value? Do you think that sometimes we have to just map our stuff right to theirs to make it easy for those humans to get it? And what I'm suggesting is there's a SEO team often, and they say, give me all your stuff and then we'll make it magically findable. And it's like, wait a minute, we are trying to make our content findable when we write it. So you don't have to come in and doctor it all up if you could teach us what you want us to know. But I think we're doing the end round around SEO if you think about it too, because now Google is telling us if you mark this up with the question markup and you mark this up with the answer and you say it came from this source, when people say, show me NetApp, how do I do whatever, they'll go look to see if you've got a question for that and just serve it right up, which would mean you could actually be taking an end run around the whole ecosystem and by pushing your content right to Google. Do you feel like we have to do that in order to get kind of people to say, wait a minute, where did all this traffic come from? And then when they see that it came in from a Google search and it wasn't their magic SEO that did it, it landed on a doc page, which they're not responsible for, maybe they would start to see the value. Do we have to kind of push them in that way in order to get some people to see?
Well, it's definitely
obvious, right?
That way. I mean, what you described is exactly what's happening. Google, that's what's happening. Everybody Googles, and then they come to our docs from a Google search.
Right.
That's one of the many reasons why our content is open. It's not behind a firewall, right? Because that's
right.
how everybody finds everything. They Google, they get the hit, and the hit is your content nested inside your documentation center or on your GitHub, repo or wherever it is. We can show that, and we have. This is where the traffic is coming in from. They came in from over there in Google land from this search, and they hit these docs, and they did it repeatedly. So you can show that story if it's a resonant story. The power of understanding SEO is understanding how to create the content to begin with so that it responds well to search, and understanding what you need to do if you change things to make sure that they get picked up again, right? So Google is re-indexing, and there's a lot of work that's done to make sure that your content, that the fresh content, the correct content is what's found. And our team is, we do spend some % of our time checking that, re-indexing, kicking things off, making sure testing links. It's not a perfect science, but it's a really important part of being a technical communicator, is understanding your content needs to be ready to respond to search. Google specifically, not internal, because that's how everybody is finding content now.
So I have a funny story that you'll love. When I was at a company where I brought Zoomin in, because I was a customer before I worked at Zoomin, and I had brought Zoomin in, and I was sitting down with the SEO team, and the SEO gal said, okay, here's my requirements. I want to make sure that these pieces of content don't change because they rank high. And I looked at it, and the stuff that was ranking high was like whatever, it was like 6.2 version of the product, and we were already up to 8. And so I went and looked at a lot of the customer feedback, and the feedback coming back was,
this stuff's old.
I don't want 6.2. Why do you have 6.2 still indexed by Google, right? So we had this tension where the SEO gal was like, no, don't change it. And I was saying, but we have to, right? Because we have newer stuff. So we were able to eventually, sort of sort out how we change the links and re-index and, do whatever we needed to get the SEO up. By the time we finished the project and I actually moved on, the CEO of the company came back and said, product content is the new marketing. Because this site had become mission critical. It had become the one place people go to from Google in order to get information about the product to determine whether or not they were going to buy. So it was
that's your quote.
Powerful.
That's the quote.
The quote. That's
there you go.
That's it. Yep, that's right. That's all she wrote. It's absolutely.
If I had free space on my arm, I would tattoo that there just to make sure everybody would see.
You can do it on your belly. Or
well, that's true, but I don't think I'll be showing my belly at the work.
Maybe we'll just get a T-shirt, Scott. How about that?
I think maybe
that's
T-shirt is paper.
Just a T-shirt will do it. Actually, a T-shirt and a coffee cup. We could give those away on our show.
There you go.
See, you guys are marketing right now.
Yeah, we are. That's right.
And I think that's important for technical communicators too. Sometimes we contact folks to be on the show, for example, and they kind of have this maybe this idea like the imposter syndrome, like okay, yeah, we're doing that here, but I can't tell people about that because I didn't write a book about it, or I don't teach a college course. And I'm like, you are 5 pages ahead in the book.
Right.
That's all you have to be. You don't have to be 20 books ahead. You can just read the chapter on the next thing that nobody has actually read yet, and now you know a little more. You can share.
You're so right. But just think about what a technical writer does.
Yeah.
We're like actors. We're like, oh, I'm going to play the part of a horseback rider, so I better go learn to ride a horse. Oh, this time I've been cast in the role of a fencer, so I got to go learn how to fence. What tech writers do is they become expert at something, whatever the thing is they're supposed to be expert at during that time period, and they need to become expert at it. And so the idea of writing about something that you don't understand or telling somebody about something that you don't fully grasp, it is anathema, right? Because it's caught. So yeah, I can imagine why you might get a lot of, I don't know the whole story, so I can't talk about it, from a tech writer, because that's our whole job, right? Is to go become an expert at a thing and tell you the whole story. So telling a piece of the story is very unnerving.
Well, especially when we look at the data. When we look at the data, we can see the non-numerical data. So we can see things like, what question did people ask? What comments did they leave on the webinar? And you would be surprised that they say things like, it was so refreshing to have an authentic point of view, and she didn't know the answer to everything, and that's okay because I don't know the answer to everything.
Right.
So I think
it's just different perspectives, right? And in this
Yeah.
world where diversity is so important, it's important to hear different perspectives, even if you're sort of at the same level. That doesn't mean you have the same thoughts or that you can't learn from each other, right?
I think we even had a show once this year where the presenter said, I don't want to do a show about something that's a thing and then talk about it. I want to do a show about something that I wonder, should it be a thing? Should we do this? And then people were like so interested. They were like, oh, I don't know about that. Maybe, maybe not. But that's a very technical writer thing. We're like, oh, we have to figure out what's good about this, what's bad about this. Is the bad really bad or just a little bad? And then we have to, prioritize everything. I think we do that anyway as human beings. And it's part of the way our brains work. But when we're asked to share it with others, it becomes like now it's the job of a teacher. And you wonder, like, am I good enough to be the teacher? And it's like, yes, you know something that a lot of people don't know. And if you share it, we're all going to get better. I think that elevates all technical communicators. Do you as a leader see that that's part of your job to kind of like elevate your team members and help them go charge off and discover the next new thing that you're not involved in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my job is to just get out of their way, really, and make sure that they're able to do exactly what you described. I think that tech writers have this unique need and ability to go off and chase answers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe everybody does. Maybe everybody has that. But we're talking about how great tech writers are right now. Yeah. So what do you need to do? You need to enable them to be brave, to ask those questions, to not know stuff, to go learn stuff, to make mistakes, to try things out. And if you don't enable that, then you stagnate, right? The whole department grinds to a halt. So yeah, I mean, I do think that's my job, is to support just the kind of I don't know, bravery and motivation that you're describing. These folks charge off and discover new things all the time. They're not just like, I understand this document. I mean, I understand this product and I'm going to document it. That is one thing they do, but they are also constantly reinventing the conversation, constantly looking for new, better ways to share data, to communicate, to understand a product, I know I've said it before, but to bring their empathy for the user into the discussion. I just got to make sure they feel safe doing that. They've explored.
I love that. So you started that out by saying you get out of their way. But I think, to be more clear, yes, you kind of get out of their way, but you also help them get out of their own way. And as a manager of tech writers, I've done this before where I've had to sit down with people who were not being well received with stakeholders or somehow were not able to get the job done. And I would sit down with them and I would do a branding exercise with them to say, here's how we're going to make sure that you're more well received with the stakeholders, let's say. And so helping them get out of their way sometimes is the key. And that's that empowering to do what they need to do to be better.
You nailed it. Yeah. And sometimes you need somebody to tell you who you are.
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I feel like that's Megan and I's job sometimes, is that we're cheerleaders. It's been interesting because the people who have expressed the most doubt are often the most engaging presenters or discussion talk show guests. And they get great feedback from people because they believe them. They're authentic. They say, you know what? I don't really know the answer to that. My gut feeling is this, but we don't really have any numbers on that. And then another person will chime in, kind of build upon that. I think that's our job, right? Like if I'm not a technical documentation manager, but I'm an influencer like Megan, we can help people understand what your role is so they can say, wow, I'm similar, right? I'm like Jen and I can do this.
Yeah. You got to see yourselves in the world. You have to see each other in the world. Yes. And when you see somebody like you who does what you do out there, you're like, hey, that's one of us. Go me, go us. It's very powerful. It's very powerful and it's very important. And that's really one of the reasons why I think this kind of exercise is worth doing. People, they should see themselves. They should feel ownership. I'm a part of a group at NetApp called the A-Team, because NetApp is hilarious. And this is, these are, partners, evangelists, high-level technologists, technical directors. I mean, these people are like really brilliant. And I'm the first content person to be invited to this team as a
you go, girl.
Technical consultant.
Awesome.
Okay, so there's tech advisors is what they're called. Excuse me. These are people who work at NetApp who are available to those folks to answer questions. So they're out there talking about the technology. These are amazing people. And every once in a while, they have a question for NetApp about how something works. And I'm there to answer questions about documentation. Well, it would never have occurred to anybody at NetApp to invite tech pubs into that environment. Like, what? Except, see, previous 10 times I said this, there I was at Insight talking, and they saw our booth and they got to know us. And they were like, these people actually kind of have something going on. And we were rolling out our GitHub work and they were really interested. Now that's really cool. And all of that built to this point where I was invited to come in as a tech advisor. This is unheard of. And I was so excited to tell my team, I'm like, guess what, guys? We're in, right? One of us, a tech pubs person, is in this forum because we matter. And it's not about Jennifer. It's about the role. The role of the technical publications person is important in understanding the offering of the company and the technology and what we've got and where's that information and this is wrong and where do you find it? That's an important role. So that's the kind of thing that I hope that will happen more, right? Is to see a technical publications person, a tech communicator, having conversations with people at a high level, being a part of the design thinking session, being a part of the usability session, leading a usability testing, piece. That's where we belong because we have something to say and we have something to communicate that will make everybody's lives better. Customer, our own people, our own product owners. And that's why I want people to remember us and see us.
Excellent. Well, that's going to have to be the last word today because we're running out of time. I know we could go on about this forever, but we will invite you back to talk about something else or maybe to do something totally different. You never know, right? Technology is changing. Before you know, we might have those magic headsets on and doing a totally different kind of show. But thank you for joining us, making time for us, Jennifer, out of your busy day. I know the audience really appreciates it. I also like to encourage the audience to join us for a couple of future shows that we have. We have Deb Batani from Poly. She's the director of technical publications group there. She's going to come to talk with us August 17th, 2 weeks from now. And we're going to discuss strategies and tactics for convincing upper management to fund your technical transformation projects. You're going to hear a little bit from Deb, some of her stories and anecdotes from the trenches, and you'll walk away with a couple of practical ideas to communicate more effectively to the leaders of the organizations that you serve. So definitely you don't want to miss that show. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to hear from Denise Cadillac at Blackbaud, whose technical documentation team is taking on UX writing as well. And she's going to talk a little bit about how their team is changing and some of the things that they're doing. So it'll kind of ebb and flow. This will be a super interesting show, and you're definitely going to want to attend. So thank you for doing that, registering. You'll get an email blast asking you to register for these upcoming shows as soon as this show is over. And I'd like to thank Deb and Megan for both joining us today on the show. Thank you. You guys, it's been great. We've had too much fun actually, so now I'm going to have to go and have a more boring day. But you started off my day great.
Yes. Hey, before everyone signs off, I want to make sure that they know we really want to hear what you think.
Yes.
There is a rate this tab in your webinar viewing panel, so go ahead and click on that, give us a 1 to 5 star rating. Definitely fill in that text box with any details. We want to make sure that we're continually creating the best content for you. So give us all of your feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, and we'll make sure to take action on that. So Jennifer, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thanks, guys. It was so fun.
You've been watching The Content Advantage. Today's show is being recorded, so shortly after you sign off, you'll get a link and an email that you can use to watch a recording of today's show. You can also share that link with others, and we hope that you will do that. On behalf of myself and Megan Gilhooly, I'd like to thank you for making time to watch our show today. We hope you'll join us for an upcoming episode, but until then, be safe, be well, and keep doing great work. See you again soon.
Ensure your customers find the answers they need with Zoomin. Bring together product content from all teams and sources to deliver a unified, personalized content experience. Check us out at www.zoominsoftware.com.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.